Hello everyone, especially to Sir Moises Calabrea. I am Charlene Danieles, greeting you all a good day in behalf of Group 2 reporters. We will do a reporting about our 7th lesson in this subject with the topic Global Culture and Cultural Flows. But before I start, let me introduce to you the members of the Group 2. Jimar Tim, Jules Ryan Chong, Liza May Gubat, Hannah Camille Castigador, Rochelle May Diliman, Michelle Balticasa, and yours truly. So let us start with the discussion. Introduction. Culture tends to flow comparatively easily throughout the world. That flow is easy because culture exists increasingly in digitized forms. The internet permits global downloading and sharing of digitized cultural forms such as movies, videos, music, books, newspaper, photos, and so on. But before understanding global culture and cultural flows, we have to understand first the three theories, which is the cultural differentialism, cultural hybridization, and the cultural convergence. Theory, the cultural differentialism. Those who adopt this theory argue that there are lasting differences among and between culture, largely unaffected by globalization or any other by inter, multi, transcultural processes and flows. This is not to say that culture is unaffected by any of these processes, especially globalization, but it is to say that at their core, they are largely unaffected by them. They remain much as they always have been. It defines culture as a clearly bound entity with a specific geological location. Culture diversity is its form. Diverse cultures clearly have distinctions which allows observers to identify a specific component of a culture from another. This theory has a long history, but it has attracted increasing attention and adherence in recent years because of two sets of events. One is the terrorist attack on September 11th and the subsequent wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, and the second attack on Twin Towers of 9/11. So these events are seen as the product of clash between Western and Islamic culture and seemingly eternal differences between them. The other is the increasing multiculturalism in US, Hispanic population and Western Europe countries, largely the growing of Muslim population and the vast differences and enmity between majority and minority of population. So let's move on to civilization. The most famous and controversial example of this theory is Samuel Huntington's Clash of the Civilization and Remaking of the World Order. By the way, Samuel Huntington is an American political scientist, advisor, and historian. Huntington differentiates among 7 or 8 world civilizations: the Sinic or Cynic, Japan, Hindu, Islamic, Orthodox, Western Europe, North America, Latin America, and the Africa. Huntington sees this civilization as differing greatly on basic philosophical assumptions, underlying values, social relations, customs, and overall outlooks on life. Huntington argued that future wars would be fought not between cultures, and the Islamic extremism would become the biggest threat to Western domination of the world. According to Huntington, for more than 3,000 years, civilization tended to be widely separated in both time and space. The contacts among them were apt to be almost non-existent. The next phase, roughly from 1500s to the close of World War II, was characterized by the sustained, overpowering, and unidirectional impact of Western civilization on all other civilizations. The third phase is the multi-civilizational system. It is traceable to the end of the expansion of the West and the beginning of the revolt against it. So that's the end of my discussion. So let's move on to the next reporter, Mr. Tintim.
Hi sir, have a good day. By the way, my name is Jimar Tim. So my topic was all about cultural hybridization. So when we say cultural hybridization, it is the mixing of an Asian, American, and European cultures. So first, we have the glocalization. Glocalization can be defined as the interpenetration of the global and the local, resulting in unique outcomes in every different geographic areas. So it means that the localization is the way to have an interpenetration in every different areas. And because of there is an interpenetration, even though they are far away, they will be able to face with each other to have better outcomes in every different geographic areas. So second is the creolization. Creolization is another concept that is closely related to localization. The term Creole generally refers to people of mixed race, but it has been extended to the idea of the creolization of language and culture involving the combination of languages and cultures that were previously unintelligible to one another. So the term Creole, it is a stable natural language that develops from the simplifying and mixing of different languages into a new one within fairly brief period of time. So there was a combination of languages and cultures before, but it is unintelligible to one another. But because of the creolization, they were be able to understand it and blend it together to create a new culture. Then the next is the Muslim Girl Scouts. Some Muslim girls are participating in the Girl Scouts. Hot dogs and s'mores are served at a cookout, but such foods meets the dietary restriction of Islamic law, beef, not pork. So this means that the Muslim girls are joining or participating in Girl Scouts. It is an interesting example of hybridization in the US involved Muslim girls. But when it comes to their foods, it is really prohibited to them to eat of flesh or of swine because it is against to their beliefs. It was written or mentioned to the Quran that Allah prohibits eating the flesh of swine because it is a sin. So as a Muslim, we don't eat pork or a flesh of swine. So the next is Appadurai's landscapes. Arjun Appadurai discusses the 5 global flows, which are the ethnoscapes, mediascapes, technoscapes, financescapes, and the educapes. So first is the ethnoscapes. Ethnoscape, it is the role of the people who are mobile groups and individuals on the move, like tourists, refugees, guest workers that play such an important role in the ever-changing world in which we increasingly live. So it means that ethnoscape was all about traveling, like refugees, tourists, and guest workers. Like for example, people wanted to travel out of necessity or in search of better opportunities for themselves and for their families. Or they wanted to travel just to skip the war. Or even leisure travelers are also part of ethnoscapes. So next is the financescapes. Financescapes is the financial and economic landscapes of the world that involve the processes by which huge sums of money move through nation states and around the world at great speeds. So it means that financescape refers to the different forms of capital and the movement of such capital across the world for various purposes, like bank transfer, and also involves her the incredibly fast speeds across the world, with vast sums of money being transferred, lost, and made. So the third is the technoscapes. So technoscapes are the ever-fluid global configuration of high and low mechanical and informational technology and the wide range of material that now moves so quickly around the globe and across borders that were at one time impervious to such movement. So it means that technoscapes is a flow of technology. Like for example, cell phone. By using cell phone, you can contact your family and friends through video call or by sending message through email. And the fourth is the mediascapes. So mediascapes involve both the electronic capacity to produce and transmit information around the world as well as the images of the world that These media create and disseminate. So Mediascape refers to the distributions of electronic technologies, entities or capabilities which produce information as well as the information they disseminate. Like for example, newspaper, radio, cable news, Netflix, movie studios, and YouTube. And by having that, we can be able to get some news or information through media. And the last is the Edioscapes. Edioscape like Mediascapes are sets of image. However, they are largely restricted to either political images produced by states and in line with their ideology. So it means that the Edioscape is a flow of ideas and it related to the political discourses of the Enlightenment such as sovereignty, freedom, rights, welfare, representation, and democracy. Apadurai's 5 landscapes can be seen as a global processes that are partly or wholly independent of any given nation state. And thank you, sir. That's all for my report.
Good day, sir. My name is Calabria. This is Jules Ryan Etium. I am going to make reporting videos about cultural convergence and cultural imperialism. So, cultural convergence is an interaction of cultures between countries. So, it is the theory that two cultures will be more and more like each other as their interaction increase, which means that the connection of the two countries became more and more closely through exchange communication of cultures. So, pwede siyang tawaging the transportation of cultures between two countries or adaptation of cultures. So, transportation of cultures because the culture of one country adapting with the other country. At ito ang dahilan kung bakit ang interaction between the two country increase o tumataas ang kanilang ugnayan. Basically, the more that the culture interact, the more that their values, behaviors, art will start to reflect each other at kinakailangang mayroong matibay na relationship to participate of the culture. Because if one of the country didn't participate particularly o makisama with the culture of the other country, supposedly the interaction decrease as their communication and transportation as well as organizational association. One example of cultural convergence is the English language culture. This means that we can often see impact of cultural convergence through the spread of language. So, English became an international language and as more countries adopted English language. One example is the United States and Japan. So, anime is rooted in Japanese culture and it is accessible to people around the world. So, ang kultura na ito ay kinilala ng mga Amerikano and it is sign of interaction of culture. And US or the United States has English language culture and mostly ginagamit na rin ito ng mga Japanese. So, cultural imperialism. Cultural imperialism occurs in the fields of history, cultural studies, and colonial studies. So, cultural imperialism practice of promoting and exposing of cultures. Mostly, it is favorable by those countries that is politically powerful or over least powerful society. For those least powerful society, the powerful country promoting their culture at maapektuhan dito ang economic, political, and also the general culture values ng isang bansa. Dahil ito ay parang pagsakop ng isang bansa sa kultura ng isang bansa na mas maliit at hindi kayang paglaban ang kanilang kultura. At kapag tuluyan ng nasakop ang bansa na ito, ay dito naman nila ini-impluwensya ng mga mananakop ang kanilang kultura sa bansang sinakop. One example is that the Spanish colonizer in our country. Yung panahon ni Rizal na ang mga Spanish colonizer ay kinukuhaan tayo ng kultura at then they promoting their culture to our Filipinos.
Hello everyone, I am Lisa May Gubat, the next reporter. As a continuation for the cultural imperialism, I will be discussing to you the two examples under cultural imperialism, which are the Indian sari weavers and the deterritorialization. Let us start with the Indian sari weavers. Let us define first what is silk sari. Sari means strip of cloth in Sanskrit and is one of the traditional crafts from India. They are symbols of national pride, ambassadors for traditional design and craftsmanship, and a prime example of the rich differences in India's 29 states. The sari, both as a symbol and reality, has filled the imagination of the subcontinent with its appeal and its ability to conceal and reveal the personality of a person wearing it. It is traditionally worn by the countries of India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and Nepal. The silk sari takes 2 months to make by hand and involve elaborate designs such as leaves, elephants, and birds made with strands of gold thread and green silk. The sari makers were being threatened by machine-made saris as a result of globalization. Dahil sa globalization, nagkaroon ng threat ang mga sari makers sa India because instead of handmade yung paggawa ng silk sari as part of their culture, nagkaroon ng pagbabago dahil sa mga teknolohiya. Unti-unting nawawala yung practices nila sa paggawa ng silk sari dahil marami ang gumagawa ng silk sari through the use of machine. Now let us continue with the deterritorialization. What is deterritorialization? Deterritorialization is the process by which a social relation called a territory has its current organization and context altered, mutated, or destroyed, or to take control and order away from a land or place that is already established. Deterritorialization not only means the travel and transformation of culture, but also means ever-broadening horizon of mundane experience, according to Tomlinson's 1999, cited in Ong 2002. Then the flow of a deterritorialized culture make it possible to transform other cultures of even produce new cultures by hybridity. Example of deterritorialization. When the Spanish conquered the Aztecs, the Spanish eliminated many symbols of Aztec beliefs and rituals. So, why deterritorialization is important? Deterritorialization in general is one of the central forces of the modern world because it brings laboring populations into the lower class sectors and spaces the relatively wealthy societies. And that's all for my report about the Indian sari weavers and the deterritorialization. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My topic is all about McDonaldization. It is described by sociologist George Ritzer at the University of Maryland. He used Max Weber's classic theory about bureaucracy as a jumping off point. What is McDonaldization mean? It is the process by which the principle of fast food restaurants are coming to dominate more and more sectors of America's society as well as the rest of the world, by Ritzer 2013. Some examples of this McDonaldization: first is the Mac Universities. Is a university or that delivers standardized course materials in a fast-track delivery made to a mass audience. It has the aim of maximizing revenues at the expenses of quality and diversity of offerings. Second is the junk food news, as well as refers to the sensational and homogenized news that is often of a little consequence. It is churned out by the media portals at the expense of serious, meticulous journalism. McDonaldization has 4 basic dimensions. First is the efficiency, that emphasizes or the effort to discover the best possible means to whatever end is described. Workers in a fast food restaurant clearly must work efficiently. Examples of these are the drive-up windows, salad bars, fill your own cup, self-serve gasoline. Second is the calculability, to emphasize on quantity, often the detriment of quality. Various aspects of work of employees and fast food restaurants are time. This emphasizes and often serves to affect adversely quality of the work from the point of view of the employee, resulting in dissatisfaction, alienation, and high turnover rates. The example of this are online coupon codes, warranty purchases, additional accessories. The third is the predictability. In a rationalized society, people prefer to know what to expect in most settings and at most times. It is also includes the replication of settings, the use of scripts to control what employees say, the routinization. The example of this is they want the Big Mac today is like the one they order next week. So the last is control. It increased control through the replacement of human with non-human technology. The example of this is fry machines that ring with the fries are done and even automatically left the fries out of the hot oil. With these four basic dimensions of the fast food industry, a strategy which is rational within a narrow scope can lead to outcomes that are harmful or irrational. Why does employees and customers' irrationality of rationality suffer? Therefore, it seems inevitably to accompany McDonaldization. Employees are forced to work in dehumanizing jobs, and customers are forced to in dehumanizing settings and circumstances. The last is beyond fast food. In this, we can decide to buy from another supplier if we suspect the quality of product supplied by the current supplier without a significant switching cost. Like for bargaining power of buyers, that consumers have a stigma for the consumption of fast food. The bargaining power of buyers is high. How did the bargaining power of buyers become high? Therefore, it is because of this have so many other restaurants to choose from with no switching costs involved. Since beyond fast food is more adaptable to the choice consumers for more focused on healthy eating, which is more able to attract more consumers than rivals in the fast food market.
Good day everyone, especially to you sir. My topic is all about the globalization of nothing. The globalization of nothing in Ritzer 2007, like McDonaldization, implies growing convergence as more and more nations around the world are increasingly characterized by nation various form of nothing.
Globalization is defined as the imperialism, ambition of nations, corporations, organizations, and the like, and their desire indeed need to impose themselves on various geographic areas throughout the world. Nothing involved empty form, forms largely devoid of distinctive content. It is easier to export empty form nothing throughout the globe than it is forms that are loaded with distinctive content.
There are four subtypes of nothing and all of them are largely empty distinctive content and are being globalized. First, non-fleas are sitting that are largely empty of content. Like for example, of non-fleas shopping mall, which is the largely empty structure. The non-fleas, on the contrary, are not meeting space and do not build common reference to a group. And second, non-things, such as chain store, product, and credit card. There is a little to distinguish one credit card from the billions of others, all of which work in exactly the same way for all who use them anywhere in the world. Third, non-fleas, or the kind of employee associated with the non-fleas. For example, telemarketers who may be virtually anywhere in the world, who interact with all customers in much the same way, relying heavily on script. And the last is non-services, such as those provided by ATM. The services provided are identical, the customer does all the work involved of obtaining the service, as opposed to human bank teller.
So that's the end of our reporting. I just hope you have learned something from what you've listened. So thank you all and God bless.